Hello everyone, my name's Katie. I'm here with Comment Magazine and Thomas Henderson, one of our fantastic CMTUK trustees. Really excited to talk today to Thomas, who is up in Scotland, about the IronMan Barcelona challenge, which is not the first of one of these challenges that Thomas has undertaken to date. So I'm really eager to hear a little bit more about this. Do you mind first starting, but just telling us a little bit about kind of how you're connected with CMTUK, how long you've been a trustee, and sort of what it means to you to be connected with this charity?
Yes, sure, no problem. So I joined CMT as a trustee to the board of directors just over 3 years ago now. The reason that I joined was because I was diagnosed with CMT not too long before that. And as part of that sort of journey of being diagnosed with a condition I didn't know what I had and what it was called and things, doing a bit of research on what's available in terms of support and opportunity for support and things, as well as the charities that potentially would support that. And CMT UK obviously is the main one in the UK for that. The sort of part that I wanted to and do play in the charity is sort of focused on that support element that the charity can do for people. So across the UK, sort of roughly 25,000 people with CMTs as far as we know. Some of them, those people don't know they've got it, and majority do. And to support our members with that sort of thing as well. So whether that be through fundraising, which I've taken part in the past, general sort of awareness campaigns, what I've done more recently with IronMan, as you mentioned there, and just to just get the word out there that one, CMT is a thing, and secondly that it's justified that we get it out there more in the health service and the sort of sphere of influence of doctors and consultants and things like that. So that's been a key part of joining the charity as well.
Fantastic. And you mentioned you've been a trustee for about 3 years, three sort of months now.
Yeah, just over 3 years. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for all of your hard work and often voluntary work, obviously, with trusteeship. So that's much appreciated by all of us that benefit from the charity.
No problem. Absolutely no problem.
I would love to hear a little bit more about this IronMan Barcelona then. I mean, it's one of those things I think people have often can imagine what it entails. Hit us. What did you have to take part in, and when was it?
So an Ironman, regardless of whether it's Barcelona, UK, whatever else, an Ironman has a set sort of disciplines and distances. So first one you'll do is a 3.8 kilometer swim. Can't quite remember the miles. I think it's 2.4 or 2.5 miles swim. Then you move on from the swim straight onto the bike, mostly a road bike or a triathlon bike. And that is 180 kilometers, I believe is 112 miles non-stop. And then you come off of that and then go into a run, which is the marathon. So 42 kilometers, 26 miles, I think that is. So yeah, quite daunting distances as a whole. You normally, the path isn't just to wake up one day as someone who's reasonably fit and go, right, I'm going to do an Ironman. Normally the path will be you sort of start off small and you sort of take part in some triathlons, which an Ironman is. It's just a huge one. So my journey was kind of as traditional as that. I joined as part of my diagnosis. I had a sort of, we call it a kind of decision point when I got diagnosed at 31, it was, whether I sort of mope around and feel sorry for myself and maybe just go on a more negative route, or I kind of own it and like I say, I've joined the charity, take matters into my own hands, try and sort of do what I think is right for me, and also at the same time with all those things, other people are going to have this condition. At the time I didn't know how many, actually I was quite surprised at the number of people, but if they can look at me and say, actually, feeling a bit low, as we all know, there's a big mental sort of stigma with it as well, with the disease, regardless of what one of the 100 or so types you've got. If they can look at people like me and say, actually, I could do something or their equivalent of that. Like we said earlier, you know, it might not be an Ironman, it might not be as extreme as that, but it might be just sort of walking once a day where they're not doing any of that at all and just getting some motivation. Some behind it said, well, if that person can do it, I can give it a go as well. So that was one of the bigger drivers for it. But so as part of that diagnosis thing, I joined the triathlon club, which is the local one. And I knew some people already at it, so it was a bit more comfortable for me to go in and just start swimming first off. And I was very adamant that that was all I was ever going to do. I was going to go in and just do swimming, because for me that was no pressure. There was no pressure to do anything else.
Totally. So, and I as someone else with CMT, swimming for me, I'm like, it's safe. Getting in and out the pool, I have to be a bit careful.
Yes.
If it's slippery. But once you're in the pool, perfect. That's about the easy exercise.
It's great. Feet off the ground, no impact. It's just, it literally feels like, it sounds real cheesy, but the only place you feel free, genuinely. So, and I've always been a swimmer, so that was a real comfortable place for me. But the coaches and things, you know, and the way people are, and you get to know people at club a few weeks and things like that, they're all like, come and try this triathlon thing. And so I eventually gave in and did my first one. It was called a super sprint triathlon. It was essentially, you know, a fraction of what the Ironman is. I can't quite remember the distances, but it was a 200-meter swim, which is 8 lanes in a normal size pool. The bike was a 5 or 6 kilometer bike ride, so maybe a sort of 15-20 minutes really for a sort of an average person, and then a 1 or 2 kilometer run, so really quite short, not just about the mile mark, something like that. And then progressed from that to a sprint triathlon, which is just slightly, so pretty much double all those things, you know, 750-meter swim, roughly 20k bike and a 5 kilometer run, to then doing something a bit bigger again. You almost pretty much double each time you do it. So then eventually thought, well, you know, I'm getting a bit fitter. I could feel some more strength in the muscles that I had left. You know, as we all know with CMT, you can't rescue what's gone. It's gone. But the muscles you do have, you can work on, and it was a big thing for me, because it was starting to, just along with age as well, starting to feel a bit weaker and losing a lot more balance and physically losing a lot more muscle. So the running and the cycling really helped it, albeit just you'll know yourself having CMT, you tire a lot quicker in terms of not necessarily, you know, cardiovascular, but your muscles are just fatigued much easier and quicker than everyone else. So it just takes a lot more work to get them used with that level of exercises and stronger and stuff like that. So I started to feel a bit more confident. So I thought, well, I could put this to use and give myself a real challenge and do a half Ironman. So I decided I would do a half Ironman, and I would do some fundraising with that. So Simon can correct it, but I think it was in the region of about £4,000 we raised for that.
And when was that?
And that was right in the middle of COVID-19. So I'd actually signed up to Staffordshire half Ironman, which is down south. But it got called off because of COVID, like a number of things did. Which really, it was right at the end of it. I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks from the actual event when they cancelled it. So I'd already done 7 or 8 months training for it. So I was like, what do you do, you know? So anyway, the club were kind enough to do a sort of unofficial supported event. So we went down to Edinburgh, swam and did the swim in the lake. So the swim for a half Ironman was 1,900 metres. So the swim in the lake down in Threepmuir Reservoir. And then the idea was that we would cycle with those guys supporting me coming through from Edinburgh back to Glasgow, or this side of Glasgow, close to where I stay, so a place called Strathclyde Park. The man-made lake, which would then allow me to do the half marathon distance, so 21 kilometres round that as the run. So we planned all that out, and unbeknown to me, the club had gone and invested a lot of money in getting CMT stroke club G72, Tri Club as the club's called, T-shirts for everybody with hands and feet and all that, all the charity colours, that sort of blue and the pink colour and everything like that, and the purple. And they had got basically the whole club there at Strathclyde Park. So when I come off the bike, they knew I would struggle with the run part of it. So they had everyone there waiting on me to surprise me when I come across the bridge, sort of thing. So I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 people were there. You know, and it was all loops every 3 or 4 kilometres. I would see them again, and it would just keep me going, sort of thing.
Quite emotional, yeah.
Oh yeah. It was a great experience. So quiet couple of years, I would say, after that. Well, a year at least. And I thought, right, should I should I really try this Ironman thing? You know, it's, it's partly a personality thing, I think.
Yeah.
But it was that gradual journey of I feel capable of doing other stuff and doing a bit more. And you know, how do you know how far you can go until you push yourself too far? I guess so. You're never going to really find out. And then with all the benefits I was seeing with what, you know, doing the half Ironman, all the triathlon stuff, and all the awareness and people saying you've inspired me to go and do this thing or that thing, and see my kids going, my dad can do these things. It doesn't matter what's wrong with me or whether it's mental or physical, you know, so there's just so many benefits to it. Yes, a bit hard work for me, but you know, there's just so much stuff that positive things come out of it. So I said, right, that's it, let's do it. Sign up somewhere, make it somewhere nice.
I was going to say, yeah, well, with
If it's
choosing
only
somewhere
once I do it, I
lovely.
want to, yeah, I want to make it somewhere good. So Barcelona was the destination of choice, but actually, tactically, it meant that, you know, at least a year's training was going to be needed for it, which meant that as part of the training, you do the sort of bigger miles and time and hours and volume on the bike, because that's the biggest part of it, you know, regardless of what way you look at it. The other two are kind of getting through. Swimming's my strong point, so I knew I had no issue with that, and I love swimming in the sea, so that was great. But the bike is a huge bit in the middle and can make or break it, essentially, as you know, talking to triathletes who know this stuff. So the miles and the bigger part of the miles, because of the timing of it being in October, meant that I would be cycling in the summer. So Scottish summers aren't really summers, but certainly in the normal time frame, you would see Ironman in the main. The calendar happens in sort of June, July time, regardless where it is, which means you're then training in the winter time, which is just really difficult in Scotland. So anyway, so that was a kind of tactical decision, but
Sure.
the timeline fitted and the location fitted in it, and you know, it was perfect. So
And that was earlier this October, right, Thomas? That was
2nd of October, yes. So thankfully it is done now, and I can say it's done, and I finished it off. But in terms of the journey up to that, so there was just more than maybe 18 months training. There's a sort of 3 or 4 phases of it. You've got a base training, and you've got a build phase training, and then you've got the peak training. I won't go through the ins and outs of it, but in terms of the peak training, which is where you get to the highest part and the most volume, it was upwards of 14 or 15 hours per week training, you know, swimming, cycling and running for that amount of time per week. So really, really tough, particularly on anyone, but particularly when you've got CMT, and you know, we know all the challenges that come with that. So that was probably the most difficult part, albeit I do remember way back last year when I was writing out the training plan, thinking, how on earth am I going to get to these levels and volumes and hours of training? But because you get fitter throughout it, surprisingly, you're there before you know it. And you're like, my goodness, you know. Yeah. So you know, it just feels really daunting. But like the Ironman itself, you get to the starting line, because you've done all this training, the big cycles and things, it doesn't feel as daunting when you're there, albeit you're nervous and things like that, but more just for the outcome of it. So
it's really not a sort of a one-day thing, is it? You're committing to something really for a year. That training plan underpins everything, as you say, that you do on the day is almost
absolutely. And for me, there was a lot of, for anyone I guess as well, but for me there was a lot of the training was probably much more extended you would normally expect, but it was more just to prove to myself and the condition and everything else that I was able to sign up for it, because the big commitment, you know, monetary, but financially, it's huge as well. So you sign up, you don't, it's not that you can just give me a refund. It doesn't work like that, you know. So you have to be sure that you're capable of potentially finishing it before you start doing the proper training program. So there's a bit of that in it as well, a bit of lead in time. So.
And you did tell me that you finished within the kind of the official time to get your medal and everything. And what was the sort of end time that you?
Yeah, so the cut off is 16 hours for Ironman Barcelona. Most of the others are around 17 and a half hours sort of thing. My set plan I had in my head and I'd worked to for literally 6 months up to it, was that my swim would take me around about an hour, give or take, depending on waves and currents and stuff like that. My bike would take me about 7 hours, and then the run would be pretty much anything I've got left to get through. So that would have given me roughly 8 hours to get through the run. So the swim worked out pretty perfect. That was an hour and 3 minutes or something like that. So pretty bang on. The bike, as soon as we sat on the bike and started to cycle, the headwind was horrific. So standing looking out the window at Barcelona, it was clear skies, sunshine, beautiful, 27 degrees, so it was actually very verging on being probably too warm. But the wind was pretty ferocious in one direction, being on the coast. The coastal route was a 290-kilometre loops, so you had to do the same loop twice. So the wind was pretty difficult and mentally really got to you because you were knowing in your head, I'm on the way through the first loop, I've still got to do this again. And it was the closest thing to it is like sticking your head out a car window and feeling the wind and the noise of the wind for 2.5 hours solid going one direction. Coming back wasn't too bad, but by that time your legs are already, it feels like you're going uphill for hours. So so that actually added half an hour or so onto my overall time, maybe 40 minutes. So that then squished the time I had left in the run. So, you know, it was a good example of a very, very reasonable plan just not going to plan. So I had to then re-plan the run. in my head, my run was going to be 20 kilometers of running, if I could get there by some miracle, and walk the rest of it, because the time would mean that I would be able to get that. I would have 3 or 4 hours left to walk the rest. Just, you know, you never, training, you don't do the full thing, so you're never really going to ever be sure 100% as to how your legs are going to be after 7 hours of cycling. You just, you know, to then how far you can run. You know, you did 4 or 5 hours in training and then maybe an hour or so running, but you just can't do it all in training because you end up causing some other issues and things. So I had to almost replan as I went, and as you mentioned earlier with CMT, so many cramps at the start of the run, it was a real kick in the face mentally. That I started to really panic, thinking, because when you get cramp, I got it in the hamstrings and things, you're immobilized, you can't move. So I was starting to really worry that I was only 2 kilometers in and I had cramped twice, and you know, so luckily there's some nutrition, we'll call it, some things that you can take that really can impact cramp. And there's one particular thing that sort of disrupts the neurological signals from your brain to the cramp, and instantly it's called cramp fix, funnily enough, fixes it instantly after sort of 10 or 20 seconds, but you just don't know how long it's going to last. So
of course
I had to take a couple of those, but anyway, I had to readjust my plan. And when I got to 2 or 3k, I was literally counting the kilometers up one by one. The watch was buzzing every time I hit a kilometer, because I just thought, am I going to get to 5? I'm going to get to 10, or you know, if that happens, I'm not going to make the 16-hour cutoff. It just wouldn't happen. So I got to 12 and 14 and 15 kilometers, and then got to 20 and then 22, and this is obviously much faster forward than I actually went at the time. There was a lot of mental breakdowns along the way, and I just kept running and one foot in front of the other, sort of thing.
I was going to say, if I can just interrupt there really quickly, just to ask. Just to ask, with how is it that I mean, that is absolutely sort of epic. While we're on the topic of those struggles, how do you, that mental fortitude to keep going, how was it that you were able to sort of do that? What were you visualizing, or what pushed you?
As part of the training, I made sure I focused on sort of the mental side of it. So what I was going to come up against, we call it in this sort of sport, they call it dark moments. Basically, you have the devil on your shoulder saying, listen, Thomas, it's fine, you've done enough, you can just chill now. You got 3/4 of the way through, or just walk, because it doesn't matter if you don't finish in 60 hours, you'll get it. And all those little people were talking to me, whoever they are. And I remember it really clearly. And I was almost talking back to them myself. So, you know, there's loads of support on either side, probably quite funny to see, but some random Scottish person walking along talking to themselves, but literally how it worked. But it was part of that sort of journey up to it, was where I was looking at it and watching what others had done and listening to the advice from other people in the club, people online. There's loads of IronMan sort of people which got their own stories and things like that and what they do. And then the professional athletes are amazing, some of the stuff, because they've got the proper coaching. And it literally is one of the 4 or 5 elements of triathlon, particularly in that endurance space where it's so long, and it's not just physical, because you can do all the training like I did. You can eat properly, which worked out really well. You have to eat loads on the bike in particular. And I'd done all those that went really to plan, other than the time thing. But if the mental part kicks in, it can be a real,
Really
it's showstopper for
yeah,
people. So
definitely.
anyway, so it was a lot about sort of doing
Mm,
that. I thought about the kids a lot of sort of songs they sang and things, just to deflect my attention onto something else when I was thinking, can I actually keep running here? Because there's a lot of
that's a
pain and
really good
things,
tip. Yeah, that's a
well, there's a
really
ton of
good
stuff.
tip. Yeah,
I-
amazing. Okay, great. And sorry to
so
put you back on track. So
yes,
before I interrupted, you were talking about, so you've taken your
mm,
cramp fix, the
yes.
muscle spasms are so done, and you're pushing through that last bit of the run.
Mm. Yes, yep, and like I was saying, just counted each. It felt like meters at a time. It was so slow because you're in the moment, thinking, when is the next buzz of this watch going to happen?
Mm,
So eventually, long story short, eventually got to 32 kilometers running.
mhm,
I've never run, even in training and isolation, just doing a run. The closest I've ever got to would have been 23 or 24, I think, is the
mhm.
furthest I've ever run in my life. Don't know how after the amount of time, but I just did get with all those things combined, and just having, I suppose you have to have determination. You've got to just push through it to get to it. Like I said, the main concern was that time. And I remember shouting over to one of the people supporting me at that point at 32k, thinking, right, this is going to, I don't know if I can run another meter. And I remember saying to them, what time do I have left? And they told me 2 hours and 13 minutes. And I quickly did in my head, I knew it would take me 2 hours to walk 10 because I'd calculated that as part of the overall plan. So
Yeah,
I said, right, I can now walk. I don't care how close this is, I can now walk,
yeah,
which means I've got 10 or 12 minutes or so of a cushion.
yeah.
And that's exactly how it worked out. So I had 2 hours of walking and got to the finish line at 15 hours and 50. That's how it works.
On behalf
Straightforward. So
of all of us
yeah.
listening to this, I feel like a big, big
Uh,
this. Well done. Well
Well,
done.
that should have been, and it was my reaction. I was really happy, but I had left absolutely everything out on the course that
Yeah.
I got under the finish line, and I was like, "Oh well, that's good, that's done." And it was the most surreal because I imagined myself for the whole year watching all these people crying and be so emotional and screaming and shouting and stuff, and I was really happy, and I was like, "Yes, thank goodness I did it." But that was it. I was
Yeah.
so tired, I think, and
Yeah.
emotionally drained, and then on the Monday, the way things worked out with the flights and everything, got to sleep about 3 in the morning. That was, bear in mind, I started it on the Sunday, the way that just after 8:30 on the Sunday morning, and I finished it on the Monday morning just after 12. When you think about it like that, you started some event one day and you finished it the next day. So
Yeah. It's
couldn't sleep because of all the caffeine, all the energy stuff. So it was 3 o'clock in the morning before I got to sleep. Then we were up really early to get a flight home, and got home, saw the kids, put them to bed and stuff like that on the Monday. And it wasn't until the Tuesday till I started crying when people were asking me questions about it. It was the most
yeah.
bizarre
You
thing.
hadn't
It
had that
just hit
time to
me.
process that you'd
Oh,
actually achieved
yeah.
this
Yeah, but I
monumental
was standing
success.
worried thinking, this is an amazing achievement and I don't really feel like I've done anything. And then on it, the Tuesday, I regretted those words because Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the whole week when people would ask me about it. Even now, I feel it, like I'm really quite emotional now, but I
Good.
couldn't stop crying to people that would ask me about it. They would ask me and I
Yeah.
would just go, oh, you'll not believe it. And so
It's
then there we
absolutely
go.
incredible. You should
Be
be
careful what you wish for.
yeah, yeah. So you should be incredibly proud. I mean,
So,
I'm proud when we
mm,
CMT can do something like that. It's amazing. What would you like to kind of, I think one of the lovely things that you highlighted earlier is that everyone's Ironman could be something different. It could be walking around
mm,
the block, it could be chair exercises every day, whatever it is, whatever your mobility and physical kind of physicality allows, there is
yeah.
some sort of physical challenge for everyone. But whether regardless of what that challenge is for individuals, what are some of the kind of motivating things or kind of things you'd like to pass on to others thinking of doing either a similar challenge or their own version of?
It's kind of linked to it. Was probably wanting to start on it. So when I did the half Ironman a couple of years back, believe it or not, there's a lot of negative feedback from it, and it was really strange to me because I hadn't really considered it, but and it's part of the reason why I say it and the way I say it now because there was a lot of sort of your CMT can't be that bad then. You can't be or you can't have CMT because if you can do that sort of thing and I can't because I'm in a wheelchair or will walk. It's all relevant things to say, but it was suddenly occurred to me that it's not just about the actual me doing that, and I think everyone's capable of doing that exact event. I do think people are much more capable of than what they think. Because I'm a testament to that. I didn't think I was capable of any triathlons, and just done one of the most extreme events ever. And that's not because I'm an amazing person. It's just I worked hard for it, but I had a belief.
Mm. Yes.
So
yeah, fantastic. Well, huge congratulations again. Thank you so much for talking us through it. Out of interest, did you do any fundraising for it through this Ironman? Is there anything people can still donate to?
it was all for awareness. Sorry, and I'm trying my best not to get too emotional on it. But
of course.
the main thing was just to properly answer your question. So I want people to look at it and go, I might not be able to do that, but I can do more, or I can push myself because it's safe to do so, and within the confines of the conditioning and symptoms you've got. But it's also just for.
It is an absolutely incredible achievement. It really is, and it's it's so
for
fresh as well.
For the kids as well. So I think I was saying this to you earlier, not just for Sienna because she's got CMT, but for the other kids to say, in life you can focus and work really hard on something, then you can absolutely achieve it. There's no barriers to stop you doing it. The ones that you come across are mainly, like I experienced even during the event, are the ones that you put up there that for yourself.
Yes.
No one can stop you doing these things if you focus and work so hard on them.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate your time today. And just on that kind of donation, is there
no, it was all for awareness of the condition. So this is where it gets easier because I'm going to talk about formal things. Don't make me cry.
Yeah.
So there's my club, people in the club came over to see me and surprised me on the Saturday, which was unbelievable. It shocked me to death. But they brought over a big banner, it CMT all over it, and they were cheerleading and things like that. It was amazing. Triathlon Scotland did an article pre the Ironman, so before it and everything. So they sent out to all the members and the newsletters, and it was all over the website. British Triathlon did the same. Some pro para triathletes did retweets and tweets of CMT's Twitter and my own as well. So amazing awareness there. But the event itself, there was 3,000 athletes taking part in the Ironman, and then another 2,000 taking part in the half Ironman. But they all brought their family with them. So there was, I think they reckoned there was 30 or 40,000 people there. So not everyone would have seen it, but the tri-suit that I had on with CMT UK and CMT Kids and everything all over it. And all those people are involved in triathlons. A massive British conglomerate goes over as well, who would have seen all the sort of British Triathlon and Triathlon Scotland stuff. So it's amazing. I think the camp has been amazing. I've had people reaching out to me from Florida with CMT on Facebook and all the usual stuff.
That's fantastic.
So it's been amazing. I think CMT Italy was in touch yesterday. They're doing some stuff. I was away seeing someone today at the national newspaper in Scotland who obviously caught wind of it and are doing some articles and things on it here. So the biggest focus this time was I've already taken a lot of money from people with donations, so I didn't want to do that again. I wanted to make it all about awareness. So I think we've done that reasonably successfully, I think. So yeah,
certainly. Well, I know everyone will love hearing about that fantastic achievement in our magazine. So thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else, any closing statement you'd like to make, or I mean, you've covered some brilliant ground, but is there anything else?
No, just at the risk of repeating myself, but anyone's capable of this kind of stuff. I'm just a guy from Scotland in a place called Blantyre who, I never imagined I would do anything like that, and did it a couple of weeks ago. So, CMT or not, mentally, I keep saying it about mental health as well. I know it's linked to CMT, but even if it's separate, there are amazing things and people can do out there. So, no, it's very
brilliant.
happy. Thanks.
Thank you so much.